Hello again guys. I am back with my World War I armoured car today, which, as I may have mentioned a couple of times in my previous video, I absolutely loved building. It was such a fun kit. At the end of that video everything was built and I was choosing between these two paint schemes here. Both of them show the vehicle in German use in Ukraine in the summer of 1918, but with slightly different camo schemes. And incredibly, for the second one we do actually have a reference photo showing the scheme. Now, one thing I didn't show you in my last video was any reference photos for these vehicles. We're quite lucky in that there are a surprising number of photos available. Not all of them particularly high quality, and most of them in these single colour schemes. But I do think they provide an interesting look at the vehicle and their uses. This one's quite interesting here, where all of the hatches and all the windows are battened down except for the front one, the driver's hatch. This one here shows soldiers carrying what I believe are flamethrowers, and I think CSM make a model of figures with those. There's also an interesting camouflage pattern on the top there, what I think is a camouflage pattern on the top, of sort of like a dappled dots. I don't think that's mud. It'd be a weird pattern if it was mud. These last few are particularly high quality, and this one here from IWM, we can see some nice features. We've got some chains on the tyres there for the snow, and although they're not included in this kit, we've got a couple of pickaxes on the side and the rear, an axe on the side and a spade on the rear as well. You can also see on the far side of the vehicle that mast is not an exhaust, but it's actually the antenna for the radio. I believe this is an image of a different vehicle. Again, it has the pickaxe on the side. On the near side, near the rear wheel on the underside, we have what looks like an exhaust poking out, which I don't recall seeing on the kit. Another nice image here. I wonder if these people are all crew. What have we got there? We've got 8 people. Would all 8 people be in this armoured car? Maybe. And in fact we've got a slightly different front arrangement here. The mudguards and the lights are slightly different here, so I'm wondering if this actually is the same model of car as I'm building. And then finally this really striking image here at the end. I think the thing that struck me about this is just the devastation in the background there. Those buildings are absolutely hammered, aren't they? Somewhere in France by the looks of it. Quite a lot of mud on the vehicle splashed up at the front and on the sides. I'm not quite sure what that is to the left of the rightmost person there, just below his hand. Is he either carrying something there or it's something behind him? And it's sort of got a squiggle on it. It looks like a camouflage pattern. I also noticed there that the doors on the front of those light compartments are closed in this case. Anyway, certainly something to think about and some inspiration for painting and weathering. That said though, I did go for the top scheme here of the grey, the green and the yellow and black outlines. Of course, as copper state models themselves say, it's hard to know exactly which greys and greens or any colours were used on World War I vehicles. I decided for the grey to go with XF22, which is RLM grey from Tamiya, and for the green to go with XF65 field grey. This is the vehicle with a pre-shading on the panel lines and the rivets of XF69 NATO black, followed by that initial XF22 grey coat. And of course I've given the inside a coat of white over the top of some brown light pre-shading. I was then able to use my 0.2mm airbrush to airbrush on the XF65 green in an approximation of the paint scheme in the instructions. I still need to work on my airbrushing technique. The edges there are not quite as neat as I would like them. However, I'm hoping that should be okay because of course we've got the 2 lines to go around the edge to neaten those up. You'll notice here as well that I've left those vertical bars there on the side blank at the moment. That's because they're running boards, which I'm assuming are going to be wood, and therefore I'm actually going to paint those in a wood colour rather than the camouflage scheme. Next up was a really fun part of the procedure. I took Vallejo model colour sand, thinned it with a small amount of water, and went around adding that yellowish demarcation line. And with a nice fine brush, that went down really well. It was such a relaxing process. I could sort of see the camouflage scheme coming to life. Any of that overspray was being covered by either this or would be covered by the black that I do in a moment. It was such a fun, relaxing process. It really genuinely made me smile while I was painting this. I really need to get myself some more World War I subjects. Once that was done, I was actually tempted not to add the black, because I quite liked the way it looked just as it was. And as I made the first few strokes of black, I wasn't really convinced, but in the end I think it did turn out quite nicely. I just had to keep reminding myself the black went between the yellow and the green, not on the outside of the yellow. Once that had all dried, it was a case of giving the relevant parts a gloss coat for the decals. The decals really are minimal on this. 2 German crosses on the turret, a name on each side, and the cross on the front. The decals went down fine. They were actually super sticky, and I had to make sure I got them right in position first up because it was very hard to move them. The cross on the front grille was quite a difficult one. It's in 2 halves because we have that vertical bar down the grille, but then we also have the lines going across as guides, because if we've got the grille open like I have, we need to cut that into pieces and apply each piece separately. So we end up with something like 16 separate decals there to add. Nevertheless, they seem to go down okay, and if we angle the grille correctly, we can see our German cross. That's pretty cool. At this stage I could also put on the wheels and therefore put on the mud guards or the wheel guards. There was only a small amount of detail painting to do, including the radiator, which can be seen through that open grille. This is Vallejo model colour aluminium. And at this stage I put in the pedals and the steering wheel, but I left the roof separate in case I wanted to do any weathering inside. And of course I still need access to the turret interior to add the machine guns. The machine guns themselves were painted in flat black and then given a small amount of metallic powder just to sort of catch the edges. Now I still had those wooden boards on the side to paint, so I gave them a coat of XF55 deck tan, and once that was dry I took some raw umber and burnt umber oil paint. I added a couple of small streaks, and then I used a brush lightly dampened in odourless thinner to streak the oil paint in the direction of the wood grain. And you can keep working this and reworking it and putting sort of swirls in it and so on until you get the pattern that you like. Mine is definitely not the best wood grain effect that you've ever seen, but it's not too bad. Weathering wise, this vehicle clearly has a lot of panel lines and especially a lot of rivets, which would really stand out. But the paint scheme itself is quite subtle and quite desaturated, so I didn't want to hit every single one of those rivets and really overwhelm the paint job. So instead I stuck to the panel lines, using my good old Abteilung 502 sepia oil paint. Now next I think I made a bit of a mistake. On my SAS Jeep that I built recently I felt I did a good job of the mud, and I wanted to replicate that effect here. However, when I took the AK Light Earth acrylic paste, I feel like I put it on a little bit too thick on the underside of the vehicle. and I probably didn't really blend the edges of that enough with some water while it was still drying. As a result, the texture does kind of stop quite abruptly at the edge of the mud. Now, I did go over that texture and the bottom of the vehicle with a coat of very light XF52 flat earth. And then, because I still wasn't really happy with it, I took some European earth pigment and just tried to blend the edges a little bit more. I think the final result looks okay, but maybe I should have just held off on the terrain paste this time. Either way, with that done, my model was complete. So there we go, guys, that was my painting of the Ehrhardt World War I armoured car from Copper State Models. I may have mentioned it already, but I really enjoyed this kit. The build was fun, the painting was great fun. There's something about just sort of going back with the paintbrush and just doing that camo scheme that I really found enjoyable. I was looking at the Copper State Models website the other day, and they've got some really interesting subjects there. I quite like these first two subjects here, both the same armoured car but in different service. But I also like this Canadian armoured MG carrier down here. That's quite tempting. Copper State Models also do a very nice range of figures in some quite unusual, quite striking poses. I quite like this dispatch rider here with a basket of pigeons as well. So we'll have to see what the future holds in terms of those. And of course, Copper State Models also make aircraft in both 1/48th and 1/32nd scale. I'm showing you on Hannants here because the CSM website doesn't seem to show as many options as Hannants. There's a few here that attract my attention, and I did see a few of these built up at Telford last year, so I am tempted, but I'm also aware that I've got a Wingnut Wings kit to build first, so we'll see how I go with the old rigging and so on before I get too involved with these. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick video. I heard lots of great things about Copper State Models and your experiences with them in the comments on the last video. So here's to hoping they keep producing some fantastic subjects. I would like to thank all of you for watching, and special thanks to my Patreon supporters and my YouTube members who support the channel on a monthly basis. It's massively appreciated, guys. Thank you very much. I will be back soon with another video, and until then, thanks again for watching, and have fun modelling.